So if I can find a place where things fall more naturally, where I say, okay, I have the mental energy for this and I can really focus on this task, whether it's doing something with someone else or even my own stuff, business wise or anything else, then okay, now I can perform better because we all need rest, right? We all need to take that mental break and kind of decompress from what we're doing. Otherwise, it's just going. You hit a wall.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University. Today, for episode number 909, we have a very special guest who we had on almost 4 years ago to the day. She is a former radio personality on WAAF and WEEI. Alan and I both used to listen to her back in the day. Foster mom to orphaned animals, many of them, a podcaster, and an overall great human being. Danielle Murr is back. Danielle, what's happening?
Gentlemen, it is so nice to be back with you guys. I can't believe this much time has passed since our last meeting.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely time has passed, and it seems like so many things have happened in your life. Alan and I have had a lot of changes as well. So you recently took a step back from radio, and one of the things that you said was you wanted to take a chance on yourself. Can you speak to what does that mean to you, and what advice would you have for somebody out there that's saying, you know what I've been doing is great, but I feel like there's something else for me? What advice would you give to somebody who wants to take a chance on themselves?
I think that we are very conditioned throughout our lives, or at least our generation and previous generations have been conditioned that you go to school, you get a job, you have a career, you get the house, you have the family. There's been a certain trajectory as far as people's definition of success over time. And I think that that has really radically changed within the last 5 or so years. Leading up to the pandemic, that was definitely a thing. But even more so, we have the Great Resignation. Millions of people left their jobs because they wanted to go pursue something different. And that's exactly what happened to me. It wasn't for lack of not loving what I did, because I loved radio. I still love radio. I miss radio every day. I miss what we did. I miss the dynamic of the show. I miss having a platform. I miss all the things surrounding it. But of course, as you guys know, and for those who might not be familiar, I started off for 14 years doing a morning show on a rock station. And then they moved Greg Hill, my host, and I over to WEEI, which was sports focused, which not my jam. Not a huge sports person. Like, I like sports. I enjoy watching games, but when it comes to the breakdowns and the background stuff, it really wasn't something that fulfilled me. And then I had to take a hard look at what direction my life was going in. And do I want to keep doing this? I have this job that I love so much, but now it's subject matter that I'm not super into and doesn't really align with what I want. And as far as, you mentioned my statement about taking a chance on myself. We are so conditioned and programmed growing up through childhood and through no fault of anyone around us, really, to believe certain stories about ourselves and limiting beliefs and who we are as people. And I think that until you start doing the deep dig and the work to figure out who you are, we really don't know who we are or what we want. So I applaud anyone who even takes that first step toward getting to know, who am I as a person? Am I really this box that society, my family, my friends, coworkers have placed me in, or am I something completely different? So that's the journey that I've been on for the last year. I mean, gosh, this weekend it'll be a year that I've been out of radio, which is kind of surreal to me. Initially, I had planned on taking a couple of months off to kind of, get away from everything, sleep late, which, in that case could have been 8 a.m. And just kind of refocus on some other things. But what I found inherently was there was a tremendous pressure to start bringing in income immediately, because that's how we've been conditioned to think. I'm in a very fortunate place that I'm secure in my home, my life, everything else. So I'm very, very fortunate in that sense that I had the opportunity to do that. But you kind of look at things and it's like, okay, what do I want to start? What do I want to do? What do I want to be? Where do I want to go? And I think for me, as you guys know, with the animal rescue stuff, especially, I've always been someone that wants to be a helper. And I like helping individuals grow, whether that's an animal or a person. And what I found over the last year is this shift that I'm gaining a tremendous amount of confidence in pursuing what I want. And that's helping people when it comes to personal development, spiritual development, digging deep and getting rid of those underlying beliefs that we've held on to for so many years that prevents us from being the amazing people that we are and having the abundance that we deserve.
Fire.
My goodness.
Yeah, it's going to be just fine.
It's going to be okay. We're all going to be fine.
Kev, at some point, I would love it if you tell the story about being on the beach after we interviewed
I was planning on. I'll tell it. Okay. I'll let you get a question in because I know you've been waiting 4 years for this, just like I have too. So.
I have, yeah. So Danielle, back when Kevin and I used to listen to you on WAAF, I remember and I've told you this story before, I was working for a company called Sensata Technologies, and I was drinking too much and too often back then, and I was unfulfilled at my career as well. And I remember I would go into a parking lot in this plaza that was empty and like nap in the morning, and I would listen to the Hillman Morning Show. I think at that time you like put it on the internet as well, so I was listening after the fact. And I remember listening to you and thinking like, she's so into personal development and she's so well educated, and I was so impressed. And now in hindsight, I realize that you've always kind of been the one into personal development, not only as a part of that show, but in general. My question for you is, all the people you've interviewed, all the people you've met, being somewhat of a local celebrity, for lack of better phrasing, why do you believe more people aren't actually into personal development? Because I'm consistently shocked at how few people make that true transition into really wanting to develop themselves, and I still don't know if I fully understand why it feels like two separate worlds.
I think one of the biggest reasons is because people are scared to death to face their BS. Because we have lived in comfort for so long, even if it's not technically comfortable, we haven't stepped outside we haven't stepped outside our comfort zone. And as you guys know, that is where the growth happens. But it's uncomfortable, it's difficult, and it takes work. You know, like I'm someone who believes very much in universal laws, like law of attraction, law of assumption, things like that. Manifestation, I think you can do it. The problem is you see these clickbait titles on YouTube saying manifest anything instantly within 30 seconds with this technique. Okay, great. But if you haven't done 5 years of shadow work to get rid of your limiting beliefs and your lack mindset and your thoughts about how you're not good enough and you don't deserve these things, guess what? You're not manifesting anything. And I think the same thing comes along with personal development stuff, is that you have to do the work, whether it's journaling, taking an introspective look at what you've been through, where your missteps have been, you know, where you could have taken a different turn, and really getting honest with yourself about what the future looks like for you, and dialing down to figure out, what do I really want? Because I think a lot of us just inherently don't know what we want. And figuring that out is not something that is going to be an overnight story. And if you look at how we came from childhood programming and things that we learned and heard throughout our lives, it's kind of like weight gain and weight loss. You didn't gain 50 pounds overnight, so you're not going to lose it in a day. And it's the same thing with personal development. You didn't develop these beliefs about yourself and your capabilities and your self-worth overnight. It was over decades. So you're going to have to put in some work to get past that stuff. And I think that a lot of people are just afraid to take a real concise look at what they need to fix and then do that work. And, people can watch YouTube videos all day. They can listen to podcasts. But at the end of the day, if you don't do the work, you can't develop yourself.
I believe that is the title, How to Manifest Anything You Want. Not even 30 seconds, Danielle, instantly. I think that's going to be that's what we're going to name this, How to Manifest Anything You Want
Instantly.
So as Alan alluded to, Danielle, for those of you who don't know, I think it was episode 26 or 29, something like that, a long time ago. But Danielle was gracious enough and kind enough and trustworthy enough to bring Alan and I to her house. And we interviewed her, and after we left, we stopped at the beach. And Danielle, you don't know this because I never told you this,
no.
But myself and Alan got out and walked down to the water, and I literally started crying because for me, that was proof that what we were doing was working, or that there was so much opportunity, or because like I used to listen to you on the radio every day. It was like, what would it be like to talk to Danielle? And here I am petting your dog. It was just a wild thing for me. So that is the story. You mentioned something in the beginning there. You said, I am gaining confidence. Anybody who saw you on the radio would just assume you're an unreasonably confident human being. And maybe you are in that compartment, right? I think confidence is compartmentalized for the most part. But what is your take on confidence, and what has that journey to being hopefully the most confident version of you, what has that been like for you?
I am someone who has notoriously over the years and throughout my life lacked self-confidence, self-worth, and for a variety of different reasons. It's from surrounding myself with certain situations and people that did not benefit me over the years and staying in those situations for far too long and not being able to eliminate things that no longer served me. That's, that's the thing you hear all the time now is cutting out the clutter, whether it's physical objects, friendships, relationships, thoughts, any of that stuff. But again, just like the personal development stuff, that takes time and it takes work. And developing confidence is not something that's going to happen again overnight. And I never believed that I deserved good things. I never believed that I deserved happiness or abundance or money or a relationship or any of that stuff. And I'm able to speak well. That's been something that I've always had my whole life. It's been very easy for me to speak. The reality is I talk to myself all day long and I rehearse conversations. So that's why it's very easy for me to speak on the fly. I am someone who suffers from tremendous amounts of social anxiety. So while I could get up in front of a crowd of 60,000 people with no plan and no written speech and be able to wing it and probably get those people on their feet giving me a standing ovation, if I drive by a store and I can't quite tell if it's open, I can't walk to the door and just open it. I have to call and be like, "Are you open?" And then click. And then I walk up. So that's, it's very easy to kind of give the appearance of confidence, but I think confidence goes so much beyond, what you exude and how you act in your daily life. It's how you approach what you're getting, what you're going after. Do you have the confidence to leave your job? Leave a career of 15 years? Do you have the confidence to go meet that person that you just made eye contact with? Do you have the confidence to start a business, to take a risk? A lot of us don't. And this is a lifelong process. It's something that while I've gotten better with over the years, I know that this is going to be a lifelong process of development and fine tuning. And it's like with anything else, like you guys, next level. When you hit that level, you reassess, you go through the process all over again. You say, okay, now I've reached this step. Where do I want to go after this? And then you go through the whole process again.
Appreciate the vulnerability always. Always.
Mm-hmm.
Danielle, I was on your Instagram and I saw you did a short film. And it's kind of what Kevin and I try to do for our listeners and viewers, which is pull back the curtain on the reality of, like you, we've interviewed some people that are celebrities. We've interviewed some people that are very wealthy and very famous. And you kind of learn that they're not necessarily super fulfilled. And they don't necessarily have everything that you think they have, in the sense of they don't wake up every day happy and healthy and like excited for their days. Some people do, and I will say that. Emilia, my girlfriend, like she genuinely is fulfilled every day, but her days are hard too. And I think what's important, and I want to ask you this, having met and interviewed so many people, what do you think is the misunderstanding? Picture Kevin and I listening to you on WAAF and assuming on some level that your lives are somehow better than ours. It's not true, and I now understand that. But there are some people who are more fulfilled, but it's not necessarily the glitz and the glam stuff. What is your perspective on pulling back the curtain on what you've seen and experienced meeting some of these people that you would assume have everything that really aren't necessarily any more or less fulfilled than the people listening or watching this right now?
I think one of the biggest assumptions that people make is that if you're a public figure or you have money, that your life is great. And we've learned over time that that is absolutely not the case. Yes, money can't buy happiness, but if you're a money-driven person, I'm a money-driven person, and it took me years to be okay with that, then yes, you will enjoy having money because it allows you to have experiences and do things that you want to do. It doesn't mean it's the end all be all. It also doesn't mean you're greedy because you like money. But when you look at that in comparison to someone who is a public figure, a celebrity with homes, cars, all these things, actors, athletes, notable influencers, whomever, the very interesting thing about social media these days and the internet is that you can make a career kind of doing anything. And that can be a blessing and a curse because while you have a lot of people that are great at what they do and are putting out great information, you also have a lot of quacks that are putting out a lot of crap. So it's kind of up to you to really filter through that information and figure out how to best serve yourself with that. But I think that we've always had this perception that if you're in the public eye or if you're a celebrity or you're this big named person, that you've got to be happy because you have it all. And the reality is those people are just like all of us. Just because someone is a famous actor or a singer or an athlete doesn't mean their life is any different than yours. Yes, they may have a house with 15 cars and you don't have that. Big deal. They still may suffer from depression, anxiety, limiting beliefs, stress within their life. And there's, I think, a perception that says like, well, what do you have to be stressed about? You have all that money. You're a millionaire. Okay, but again, that doesn't solve all your problems. That's not going to fix your internal struggle or the things that you've been dealing with over the years. So that's something that I notice most often, especially having met, a lot of celebrities and notable people over time, is that, you know what? Even though you're famous, doesn't mean you're happy.
Danielle, I think it's clear that you've learned a lot, and you've probably read a lot of books, and you've probably read a lot of articles and all that. And I love that, and Alan and I love that. And one of the things I've realized recently, and I'm on this kick, and I get on these different kicks depending on where we are and what's happening, but I realize the importance of unlearning something is probably more impactful than learning in the long run. What has been the most difficult thing and the most impactful thing for you to unlearn about yourself or your past or your expectations? When you read the book of you, what is the thing that you have worked the hardest on saying, just because this is how it's been, isn't how this has to be the way forever?
I think the hardest thing to unlearn is satisfying other people's expectations of you, because people around you, whether it's family, friends, coworkers, anybody, have this expectation that you should be doing a certain thing. For instance, when I left radio, a lot of people are like, what are you, nuts? You're crazy. You left a solid job. And unfortunately, there's this misconception out there that like we make millions of dollars, which is not the case in radio. Like it's not the 90s anymore. People aren't making the big bucks in radio these days. But it's this kind of like, why would you leave such a glamorous job? Why would you do this or that? And it's like, because I can. Because I want to do something different now. I'm in my 40s. I don't, it's while I love that job, now I'm more about fulfillment and doing something to help others. Like I just had a great meeting this morning with a girlfriend of mine that I'd known for years, but we were never super close. But she and I are very aligned in the way we think about spiritual development and things like that. So I reached out to her and I said, hey, do you want to have coffee? Like, I think it would be great if we could talk about building some spiritual retreats or building some women's groups to help people heal from trauma or doing any of this kind of stuff. And to have that discussion, I think is amazing, because that's stuff that lights me up. I love that. And for a long time, I just felt, okay, I should go to this job because it's a good job and because I make money and because I have health insurance and a 401k. And yes, those are all great things. And they were very difficult things to give up. And like, I'm paying through the nose for health insurance now. But what I feel now in what I'm trying to build is incredible. And it took me pretty much this past year to get here, because like I said earlier, I was so focused on, okay, how can I build income immediately? And then I really had to take a step back after trying a few different things. And by the way, giving myself grace to abandon those things once I got into them. And I was like, you know what? This isn't really lighting me up. My chakras aren't blinking over here. Not really into this. And being able to walk away from it. And the more I focused on the stuff that I liked when it came to personal development, I realized this is what I want to be putting out there and helping other people tackle, whether it's content for social media, hosting retreats, or just educating people, or even just doing this podcast and letting people know that, yeah, you can do what you want. You can have what you want. It's just a matter of convincing yourself of that. You don't necessarily have to convince everybody else around you, but you have to convince yourself sometimes, because you've been told for so long, this is the way it is.
And I actually have a really exciting live event coming up in Boston. If you can come visit us, I'm joining my friends at Next Level University, and I would love to meet you all. And that is on March 26th. So get your tickets soon.
Danielle, did your circle change? Sorry, Alan.
No, you're good, man.
Did your
My circle has evolved.
Okay.
It's definitely evolved over the years. I've lost a couple of friendships, which were people that no longer fit in with my life. And that was fine, because that's what happens with friendships. They come together and they fall apart. And I truly believe that the universe does put certain people and experiences in your life for a certain amount of time and then takes them out, whether it's to teach you a lesson or give you guidance about something. Especially over the last 3 years, I've had a few people that have come into my life and then disappeared, which normally we kind of struggle with that. Like, wow, why am I not friends with that person anymore? But then when I look about I look at what I learned from the time that I was with that person, and then look at what I learned from being apart from them, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I totally got what was meant to be given to me. Whatever higher power you believe in, if any. I'm spiritual, so I'm a universe person. I very much believe in energy and the exchange of energy, and words, thoughts become things. So I think that there is a lot of influence in what surrounds you for situations. It's just a matter of being open to it and being able to view it a certain way. But I find myself gravitating more toward people that I never really had relationships with before, because they're more like-minded in this space, whether it's personal development, spiritual development, stuff like that. I have a few friends that are big Tony Robbins guys. I love that because we've done a lot of his stuff together. I've been invited to join my friend in Business Mastery. And I know some people are not into Tony. So, that it is what it is. But you start to kind of find your circle when you put more of this stuff out there and see like, okay, this is the direction I want to go in now. And it doesn't mean that I've lost the core group of friends that I have, because, I have a small circle. What I consider to be true friends is a very small circle. I have a ton of acquaintances, but people that are actually what I consider to be friends is a small, tight, intimate circle. And I don't think most of those people will ever leave my life. It doesn't mean that they're all involved and interested in what this stuff is. But the great thing is that they support me. So even if they're not into the same stuff, they're like, wow, that's awesome. I'm excited about it. Or could you tell me more? Or, you know what? I don't care about that, but I'm psyched for you. So as you talk more about this stuff that you're into, and I know that you guys have probably experienced this over the last few years, you start to draw those people in that are more aligned with where you're trying to go. And that all that does is help support you and lift you up and get you there a little bit faster.
I'd argue that's why this is happening at this time. I just think we've grown and we've realigned. So, Alan, go ahead, sorry.
What inspires one person will repel another. And I think what we struggle with is that repel.
Yeah.
You've evolved a lot. We've evolved a lot. And I used to believe that, my high school friends and my college friends and my corporate friends, I really did. I did. I believed that I could bring everyone with me, so to speak. And I think, in hindsight, it's very clear that not everyone has massive goals and dreams and wants to change the world. And not everyone's into personal development. That's another thing that's been, again, challenging for me. Danielle, I've coached a lot of people, and one of the things that everyone struggles with, even people you don't think they struggle with, is getting lashed back when they evolve. Whether it's someone who joins our NLU team, we have a 15-person team now, and at the moment they join this team, they start to grow, they start to evolve, they start to have bigger goals, they start to track their habits every day. Everyone on our team, every single person tracks habits every single day, and they all end up growing at an accelerated rate and evolving at an accelerated rate. And what unfortunately happens is that when they evolve, all of the relationships have to evolve. And so some people become inspired and join us on that journey. Some people repel and then attack. Can you please share with our listeners and viewers what it's been like for you to evolve, and how did you deal with some of the lashback that really did come with that, because people loved you for the old Danielle and you're evolving into the new Danielle?
One of the things I find a lot is that people have a very much of a stay in your lane mentality. And I think anyone that creates any kind of content that goes on social media has experienced this at one point or another. Whether you're, putting out positive mental attitude stuff or pop culture stuff or cooking, like literally anything that you do, once you step outside of that circle, people automatically, the hands go up. They don't want to hear it. Shut up. I didn't come here for this. Obviously, we see that a lot with politics, but, I didn't come here for this take. Just shut up and cook something or give me a recipe. And I think that you get that from people that are around you as well, that they're kind of like, hey, you've always been this person. What are you doing here now? It's like, well, I want to do something different, dude. Like, if you wanted to do that, I would support you. Like, what the hell do you care? It's not hurting you. And I've been very fortunate that I really haven't dealt with a ton of resistance from people around me. Mostly everybody's been supportive, and they're kind of excited to see what my next step is, what I'm developing. And I'm fortunate because I've learned that the reason why that they're supportive is because they believed in me. These are people that have believed in me for years when I didn't believe in myself. And you turn around and they're kind of like, oh, it's about time. It's about time you did this and struck out on your own. And I'm like, what, really? You think so? They're like, yeah, you're going to be great. Yeah, we miss you on the radio, but you're going to be great. You're going to be fine. So, I've been very lucky that I haven't had to deal with much of that, but I see it with other people that I know. And I think that that's part of the personal growth process, is learning how to kind of, one of the most successful things you can learn to do in life is set boundaries with other people, but do it in a way that's graceful and doesn't shut them off completely. And I think that's really hard for a lot of people, especially people like me who are people pleasers and always want to help and say yes. And oh, you need help, I'm going to drop everything, even though I have a day full of stuff. It's taken me a long time to learn how to say no or suggest alternatives to people, because I was chronically inconveniencing myself trying to fit all this stuff in. And finally, I just had to put my foot down and say, hey, this is what I can handle right now. If you want me to show up as my best self, this is what I need to do. Even scheduling this podcast, we wanted to try to do something earlier. I knew that if I tried to fit into my schedule last week, I was going to have to move something around. Something was going to run late. I didn't want to disappoint you guys and be all frazzled and all over the place. I wanted to be present and intentional in what I was saying and what we were doing here. So I think that's a really helpful thing for people, is to realize that they're going to need to set those boundaries with people and dig their heels in and say, hey, this is my journey and this is what I'm doing now. So please respect this space, even if you're not on board.
We did
Powerful.
Respect that very much, Danielle.
Yeah.
And
I appreciate
I didn't realize
that.
until this moment that was a challenge for you.
Yeah.
Because I just to bring everyone behind the scenes, I asked Danielle, like, hey, we need an episode for this upcoming week with a guest. Would you be willing to find a time? And she respectfully set that boundary. And I was like, okay, cool. And when you do set boundaries, I just want everyone to know, if people do lash back, that tells you that there's a quote that Kevin and I started using, and we heard it from Lauren Johnson, one of our friends. She said, the people who get upset with you when you set a boundary are the people who are benefiting from you not having them.
That is very correct. That is so correct. So much
ahead.
so. And you find a lot of people that they just take advantage. Might not even be their intention. That there are givers and takers in this world. I'm someone who is a giver, to a fault. And I would find that, I would have a day planned full of really important stuff, and I might get a call from a friend in the morning saying, hey, what are you doing right now? I need some help with something. And I would drop everything, even though it wasn't an urgent thing that could have waited a day or two or even a couple of hours. But for me, I was like, oh, all right, got to give up everything that I had planned. And I've realized that in spreading myself too thin and in doing things like that, like I just said, I can't show up as my best self. So not only do I cheat them, but I cheat myself. So if I can find a place where things fall more naturally, where I say, okay, I have the mental energy for this and I can really focus on this task, whether it's doing something with someone else or even my own stuff, business-wise or anything else, then okay, now I can perform better, because we all need rest, right? We all need to take that mental break and kind of decompress from what we're doing. Otherwise, it's just going. You hit a wall.
Danielle, we say we interview you 4 years from today. And I'm sure probably 4 years ago, you didn't know that you'd be at this point in your life. Maybe you did. Maybe you had a feeling. But where do you hope to be? Where do you, not hope, get rid of that, cross that out. Where do you intend to be 4 years from today when we message you on whatever weird platforms are floating around the internet at that point and say, hey, come join our podcast? Where are you in life?
Podcasting from space.
I know we have to think about how things have changed. I'm like, oh, have you downloaded the satellite app on your phone? Let's check in on that real quick. Because I've had so much clarity, especially in the last month or so, with how I want to really focus on helping people and doing things like travel, because I'm hosting group travel trips now. I really want to be in a space where I'm traveling the world, able to monetize that, and also create healing spaces for people, whether it's a coaching container or a retreat or something like that. I have benefited so much from kind of cracking through the surface and finally getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to do this work. Here we go. Let's get better. That I know what I needed. I know what helped me get over that hump. I know what finally pushed me over the edge to say, I've had enough of this. I don't want to live like this anymore. And not that my life has ever been bad. I've never, yes, I've dealt with trauma in my life. I've dealt with difficult situations. I've never dealt with catastrophe. I've never been homeless. I've never been destitute. I've been very, very fortunate in that sense. And I will be eternally grateful for that. But, I did a podcast episode once on the term could be worse. Everyone has their own struggle. So it's, you can look at things and say, how could you complain about X with Y going on? when, one person doesn't have any frame of reference to what the other is going through. So I want to be in a space where, my goals are to be financially independent, to have freedom of schedule and movement so I can work from anywhere, go anywhere, do anything I want at any time, or wake up on a Tuesday and decide today I'm going to go hike and have lunch with a friend and I'm not going to do anything work related. And I want to be inspiring people and healing people. I want to grow my brand and my network, not so I can be some famous Instagrammer, but so that people identify me as someone that, hey, I found this girl and I started watching her stuff and I went to one of her retreats and oh my God, she helped me so much. That's what I want, because I know what I have gone through and how much better I feel even in the last year after starting things like breath work, meditation, journaling, dialing down, getting an education, investing in myself by getting courses, getting coaching, things like that. A lot of stuff that people tend to poo-poo when they see it, they're like, oh, I'm not paying for that. I can find that for free online. But, the reality is a lot of times what you really need is the structure of a program or the guidance of someone who has been there. And yeah, there are quacks out there, like I said before, that don't know anything, but there are a lot of very valuable avenues whereby you can gain an education into how to better yourself. And so in that space 4 years from now, when we talk on the, whatever 20,000th episode of the podcast, it'll be at that point, I want to be able to come forward and say, man, remember how we talked about this? This was exponential growth. I grew so much more than people could even imagine. One of the things I'm into very much now is human design. And a lot of people see that as kind of woo-woo. I dial down to the science of stuff and I'm like, wow, this really shows you. And for those who aren't familiar, it's based on your birth information, like your natal chart or your astrology chart, but it really gives you an idea of how you approach work, decision-making, things like that. And when I see it applied in real life situations, I'm like, wow, there are so many great tools out there to help us be the best version of ourselves, or at least be a better one that knows that it can grow. So take the time, learn about it, listen to some stuff. There's plenty of free information out there if you're not ready to make a monetary investment in someone else helping you. And that's totally fine. But just take that first step to I got to do something.
Wonderfully said.
Super powerful. Danielle, this was wonderful. I look forward to the next one and to everything that you're going to do. Kevin and I have evolved quite a bit, and I know that he feels the same way. If you need help with any of that, we've dissected this industry upside down and sideways and re-engineered it, our business model, all that stuff. We're happy to help you. Seriously.
I appreciate that so much. And what you guys have done is so impressive. Obviously I've kept up with you on social media, but when we reconnected recently and I started doing a deep dive into everything that you guys have built, I'm so impressed and I'm so proud of you, because it's like, I saw you in the beginning, we'd been connected for years and I'm just like, look at these guys. I'm like, they're just crushing it. What you're doing is amazing. And it's not just for you, you're helping other people, whether it's through seminars, coaching, guidance, education. You put out so much incredible free content that would help people take the next level in their personal life and their business. And you should be incredibly proud of that, because you are helping the collective evolve.
So appreciate that so
Thank
much.
you.
I know
Of
that means
course.
the world. Lit me right up. Emilia asked me, what are you most proud of? I'm grateful that we're making a lot of money now, but the way in which we make our money is what I'm most proud of. Producing so many podcasts in the personal development industry. The world needs more personal development. That's what I feel. That is the solution, in my opinion. So thank you so much, Danielle. Appreciate it.
Alan asked me at the beginning, he said, what's the through line of where you want to go? And I said, honestly, I think Danielle is where we were. I think she's going now into she's going to start her own brand and she's going to do what we're doing in her own unique way. And I said, that's where I want to stay. And I'm glad we did. Let's talk about you a little bit more. You and your charities, you and what you're doing in the world. One of my favorite parts of following you and your journey is there's always ridiculously cute animals, and you're always helping. You're always helping the betterment of humanity and little creatures that need help. Talk about that. I love that. It's my favorite thing about you, I think.
Thank you. So I've been doing animal rescue for goodness since I want to say 2009-ish. So we're coming up on 13 years this year. And I've run the gamut of, helping kittens, dogs, wildlife, all kinds of stuff. But what I specialize in is critical care for neonates, and, babies that have been abandoned, whose mom might've been killed, or who were found alone, or whatever it might be, mammals, and kind of getting them from a place where they are to a place where they're healthy and whether they can be released back into the wild or a domestic animal that needs to be adopted. It's just, people often come to me and be like, I found this baby animal. I don't know what to do with it. It's almost dead. And you bring it to Danielle, and I do my best to resuscitate that thing and keep it alive. But, I faced a lot of criticism over the years because people have said to me, you always help animals. How come you don't help people? And I'm like, why would you assume that I don't help people? They said, well, you never talk about it. And I said, well, I don't help people to talk about it. They have voices. And I like to help people on the DL. If it's a friend that's struggling, to make ends meet or doesn't have rent money, maybe like, okay, can I help you with this? Or donations to a charitable cause, things like that. But animals don't have a voice. So that's something that is super important to me, is providing that voice for them. And I have my own nonprofit organization called Blues Bridge. So yes, of course I'm going to publicize that because I need to raise money for the work that we do. So Blues Bridge, I named after my first rescue dog, Blue. She was a Blue Doberman. She was wonderful. She had been a breeder dog, and then they were getting rid of some of their stock of dogs. So I adopted her, and she was just the most kind, mothering, gentle, amazing dog. She used to take care of, the foster kittens that I had, and she would take care of them just like they were her own little puppies. It was really incredible to see that mothering instinct just transfer across, different types of animals. And so the concept of Blues Bridge is it gets an animal from where it is to where it needs to be, which is often right before the Rainbow Bridge, because I've done a lot of hospice work in the past, and where I do take in some critical care animals that are in really, really rough shape sometimes. A lot of times you can't save them. So it's really just a matter of keeping them comfortable. So along with that comes a lot of vet bills, a lot of supply bills, cleaning stuff, food, litter, medicine, things like that. So Blues Bridge raises money for that. And that's really the financial arm of what I do. And if you're interested in contributing or helping out with that, you can go to bluesbridge.org. We have a new website in the works right now. So it's kind of like the old basic website, but if you want to make a donation or learn about what we do, there is information there. And of course, I'm super grateful for anything that people send my way in terms of monetary donations. And I'm very, very careful with how we use that money because, when you make your money, whether you have millions of dollars or $5, you want to make sure that your money is making an impact. And all too often we find with a lot of nonprofit organizations is that there's a lot of overhead and a lot of waste, especially when it comes to big salaries sometimes. And, that's dependent on the individual organization. But I really try to make sure that every dollar that comes in goes toward the animals, goes toward their care, and not toward frivolous things, because that's important to me. Like if you're putting your trust in me, then I want to make sure that I deliver on that. It's the same reason why I don't work with a lot of brands when it comes to like an influencer perspective, because my audience trusts me and they know that I don't put a lot of stuff out there. So yeah, a company could pay me $1,000 to post a picture of their stuff online. But if somebody buys it and they're like, this is crap, why would you peddle this? The $1,000 I make is far less than the hit it would take to my reputation by peddling stuff that I don't believe in. And that translates to me to animal rescue as well, because I'm like, hey, I'm doing this work and I want you to know that if you're going to donate to me, you can trust that money is going to go to the right spot.
Yeah. And
well, Alan and I,
sure.
Alan and I believe in you. We believe
Thank
in what
you.
you're doing. So everything will be in the show notes below. If you're listening, please check all that out. Danielle is doing wonderful in the world for both humans and animals. That I can definitely say. Danielle, thank you so very much for joining us. Maybe
You're welcome.
We'll get one in the books before 4 years. Maybe we'll do 3 years or something. But we're just very, very proud. Thank you so much for the kind words. Very proud of you also, because that inner work is difficult. And although it doesn't show in terms of social media content or whatnot, obviously you're doing it behind the scenes. And Alan and I are very proud of you for doing that. So thank you so very much for joining. Of course.
You're welcome,
and you will
guys.
be receiving a donation from NLU.
Yes.
Thank
we've got
you.
Our CFO over there, Danielle. We call them
fantastic.
money bags. Money bags is what we
I like money, Danielle. So you throw me in front of the money, and
Exactly.
either I'll burn it to the ground or something will happen. So
Or we'll multiply it into a bigger pile. I like that
so
option.
far, so good.
Exponential growth.
Next Level Nation, follow Danielle. She is wonderful. And as always, at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Please reach out.